terms for senators. That way you don't end up with situations like this. Republican Mitch McConnell yesterday during a hearing on Capitol Hill.
I'm going to ask Senator McCaskey to wrap up, and thank you all for being here.
Baldwin, Shaheen, and Kennedy. Baldwin, Shaheen, and Kennedy still have questions. Wrap up after.
Let me see what I'm being told here. Yeah, obviously there's not a whole lot of time for a second round.
All right, so Mitch McConnell, 84 years old. He's been in the Senate for 41 years, but he needed a staffer to remind him 4 times during that hearing that 3 other senators still needed to speak. Everyone gets to speak. And look, I get it, okay? I get it. But Mitch McConnell should be home, like watching court TV, spending time with his family. I don't care that he's a Republican. That's pathetic, and that shouldn't be happening. Ben Ferguson is the host of The Ben Ferguson Show. Emily Sturge is a campus reform reporter. It's great to have you both.
Good to be here.
Ben, according to a poll, 83% of Americans support term limits. Is it time to have a serious conversation about this issue?
Yeah, clearly the American people say it's beyond time that we should have a serious conversation about this. And look, Mitch McConnell is a guy, whether I like his politics or not, he had a great career. Why is he still there? And it tells you the answer is like why we need term limits. Because he doesn't want to give up the power that he has accumulated. The longer you're in D.C., the more power you get. The more people bow down to you, the more special interests pay you, the more of the politicians stop listening to the constituents and listen more to those that are there as lobbyists, right? The game changes the longer you're there. And so why is Mitch McConnell willing to embarrass himself in this way at the end of his career, where it is obvious, just like we saw Joe Biden, you shouldn't be in office because he doesn't want to give up that significance, the power that he accumulated over years and decades. I was 3 years old when he got into office, 3 years old.
Right.
The fact that he's still there is in complete insanity. So we should have term limits. It's long overdue, and Washington is broken, and it's fixed for these guys.
Look, and I said this about Joe Biden. I don't care that Mitch is a Republican. I don't think cognitively, I don't think he's all there. In fact, he is not all there, based on that video and what I just saw.
Mitch McConnell is the Joe Biden of the Republican Party, and I don't mean that in a mean way. It's just the truth. They're both senile old men that don't need to be in a position of power.
I don't even care if it sounds mean, okay? We're not going to play this little game and dance around it. Emily, Donald Trump, I thought this was actually, it surprised me. Donald Trump tried to bail him out on Truth Social. Before flying to China, he posted this saying that it was the staffer's fault who made Mitch McConnell look foolish and try to, kind of get out of that. Do you think it was the staffer's fault? I don't.
No, I think the problem here is competency. And look, our founding fathers did not intend for our government to look like a retirement home. That's what Florida's for. But all jokes aside, I mean, we absolutely need term limits. And one of the many reasons why is because it would allow for fresh blood and fresh ideas to break into the system. These disruptor style candidates do really, really well with the American people. And it feels like for so many years, I mean, it's the same exact people on the ballot. But look at these disruptor candidates like President Donald Trump, for instance. He did so well with the American people because he represented somebody who would come in and totally shake up the status quo.
Right.
As a reporter for the Leadership Institute's Campus Reform, I reported that it was because he was shaking up that status quo. He did so well with young people. In New York City, Mayor Mamdani, same exact case. Fresh face, new ideas. In the Los Angeles mayoral race, Spencer Pratt, an independent. Same exact thing, fresh ideas. That's a Republican, a Democrat, and an independent, all representing the same exact phenomenon. And limits on Congress, term limits, would absolutely bring fresh new candidates and fresh faces to the ballot, which the American people would really enjoy.
That's a good, I hadn't thought about that. When the founders drew up the Constitution, the entire purpose of public service was to run for office, serve your country for a few years, and then return to private life. Go back to the farm. They never envisioned senators in their 90s or congressmen serving 20 terms, but that's common now. What about maybe having age limits, Ben? People don't like to talk about this, but what about 65 or 70 or 75?
Yeah, I don't think that age limits are an issue. I've met some brilliant people in their upper 70s and early 80s that I think are very competent. I look at Ronald Reagan as an example when he was running for president. I look at Donald Trump now,
no,
right?
But Ben, you have to admit, we can't tiptoe around that issue either. At some point,
but that's
you got to
where
hang them up. It doesn't mean that you got to go lay out to pasture, but at some point you got to hang them up, right?
But term limits would fix the issue. We have a term limit with the presidency of 8 years. You shouldn't be in the Senate for 40 years. You shouldn't be able to do this your entire life.
Right, unless you
and
have
so I go back to the voters here, but let me say one other thing about that staff member. That staff member that should not be fired, he should be given staff member of the year.
Right.
Maybe we should rename it as babysitter of the year, because that was babysitting. That was what you see at an old folks home. Okay, it's time to go to bed, Grandpa.
Yeah.
It's time to be
Let's
done with your
get the
Jello,
tapioca
Grandpa.
pudding out.
Like
Yep.
that is a babysitter. That is not a staffer.
Somebody put on Wapner. No, I'm totally true, and I'm not making fun. All right, it's like, if this is what's happening on camera, imagine what it's like behind closed doors in his office. Just quickly, I want to play you Dianne Feinstein. So this is a woman who was in the Senate for 30 years. She was 90 years old on the Senate floor, and she one day forgot how to vote. Take a look.
Yeah.
It funds priorities submitted.
Yeah, just say aye.
Okay, just aye.
Emily, I've got 20 seconds. She died a couple weeks later. The only thing that worries me about mandatory retirement age is that what if somebody runs, with term limits, if you don't do mandatory retirement age, what if somebody runs, first-time candidate, at 80 years old and gets elected? You run into the same problem, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely run into the same problem. And I think one of the bigger problems here is how out of touch members of Congress are with the American people. And we saw during those government shutdowns, we saw members of Congress skipping the lines while everyday Americans like me were waiting in hours-long lines in TSA. 1.4 million Americans didn't receive their paychecks during the 2025 government shutdown. But of course, members of Congress received theirs. Yeah. I think that's a reason why Americans overwhelmingly support term limits here, is because they just feel like their members of Congress are completely out of touch.
All right. This is everybody has an opinion about this, by the way. Everyone's got an opinion. Ben Ferguson, Emily Sturge, good to see you tonight. Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thanks
All
so
right.
much.